Centuries ago, in the silent halls of ancient temples, sages taught something that few understood. True wealth didn't begin with gold or land, but with an idea. An idea so powerful it could transform a person's life forever. Today, on this journey, you won't hear magic formulas or empty promises. What you will discover are hidden financial codes, silent principles that have guided history's most prosperous people. Rules that, if you decide to apply them, will show you how to create wealth from scratch. Let me ask you something very personal. Have you ever felt that there is enormous potential within you, but you haven't yet been able to unleash it? If the answer is yes, right now in the comments, I awaken my greatness, because that phrase will be the first diamond you will collect on this journey. Take a deep breath, because what you are about to discover can change the way you look at your life and your financial future forever. Strategy 1: The hidden value of time. The most democratic resource on earth isn't money, knowledge, or connections. It's time. Think about this. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, or Warren Buffett have exactly the same 24 hours a day as you. The difference isn't in the amount of time, but in how they use it. Buffett himself expressed it with a powerful metaphor. Someone sits today in the shade of a tree because someone planted that tree many years ago. That tree didn't grow overnight. It was the result of small decisions repeated over time. Think about it. If you dedicate just 1 hour a day to learning about finance, investing, or personal development, by the end of the year, you will have accumulated 365 hours of competitive advantage over most. That's equivalent to more than 9 full work weeks of intensive study. Now, imagine what would happen in 5 years. More than 1,800 hours of knowledge, equivalent to completing several university degrees, but focused on your financial freedom. Here's the secret. Time isn't spent. It's invested or lost. Every time you postpone a habit, you silently sign a contract with poverty. A study by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics revealed that the average citizen spends 2.5 hours a day watching television and 3 hours on social media. That means that after 10 years, you will have invested more than 20,000 hours in passive entertainment, the equivalent of 10 years of full-time work. Do you realize those same hours invested in learning, creating, and entrepreneurship could build an empire? Time is like seed money that we all receive equally, but most people waste it on emotional expenses, distractions, complaints, procrastination. The smart investor turns every minute into a seed for the future. Imagine if every hour were a $100 bill. If you spend it on empty entertainment, it's gone forever. If you invest it in learning how to generate income, that same hour could multiply by 1,000 or 10,000 in the future. The true millionaire isn't the one with the most money in the bank, but the one who knows how to capitalize on their time better than others. And here I want to leave you with a thought. The poor sell their time to survive. The rich invest their time to multiply. Strategy 2: Your mind is your first business. Before you open a bank account, before you launch a business, before you even think about investments, there's a silent truth. Your mind is your first business. The difference between those who create wealth and those who never escape mediocrity isn't initially in the amount of money they have, but in the way they think. Financial psychologists like Carol Dweck and James Clear have shown that more than 80% of financial success depends on beliefs, habits, and mental patterns, while only 20% comes from techniques and strategies. In other words, you can know the best investment methods, but if your mind is programmed for scarcity, you'll sabotage yourself again and again. Think of it this way. Imagine your mind is a business. Your thoughts are the employees. Your beliefs are the organizational culture. And your habits are the cash flow. If your mental company is filled with complaining employees, a culture of fear, and negative cash flow, What results do you think you'll have in real life? That's right, emotional and financial bankruptcy. A Stanford University study revealed that people with a growth mindset are those who believe they can improve with effort and are 47% more likely to achieve financial stability compared to those with a fixed mindset. This explains why, even among siblings raised in the same home and with the same resources, one can prosper and the other remain in poverty. It's not a matter of luck, it's a matter of mental programming. According to the American Psychological Association, 72% of the financial decisions a person makes are influenced by emotions, not pure logic. This means that your bank account reflects your emotional state more than your technical knowledge. The mind acts like a mirror. If you see limits in it, your wealth will stop at those same limits. But if you visualize abundance, possibilities, and solutions in it, your life will inevitably tend toward those scenarios. The question is, what kind of business are you running inside yourself? A business bankrupted by doubt and self-criticism, or a solid business with vision, innovation, and strategy? Money doesn't solve a poor mindset. A study by the National Endowment for Financial Education showed that 70% of people who win the lottery lose all their money in less than 5 years. Why? Because they tried to deposit millions into a mind with internal debt. Therefore, if you want to build real wealth, your first investment shouldn't be in stocks, cryptocurrencies, or real estate. It should be in you, in your education, in your habits, in your discipline, in your ability to see opportunities where others only see problems. That's why I want you to write it not only in the comments, but also in your heart. I accept success and happiness in my life. Because a mind that opens itself to accepting success is already building the most profitable business of all, the business of its own greatness. Strategy 3. The power of invisible savings. Saving isn't about saving what's left over. Saving is an act of financial self-respect. It's about deciding that, before paying the bank, the supermarket, or the consumer society, you pay yourself first. Many people confuse saving with what's left at the end of the month, but that's the mistake that keeps millions trapped in the rat race. If you wait to see what's left over, there will never be anything left over, because there will always be an expense, a sale, an excuse. If you set aside just $5 a day, something many spend on a coffee or a snack, after a month you would have $150. In a year, $1,825. But here's the magic. If you put that money into a financial instrument that yields 10% annually, in 10 years, you wouldn't have $18,250, but more than $30,000. That difference is the work of compound interest, the silent machine that multiplies your money while you sleep. Albert Einstein himself called it the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays for it. Now, project further. If you maintained that same habit for 30 years with just $5 a day, you would be accumulating more than $300,000. Do you realize? It's not magic, it's not luck. It's simply perseverance and foresight. And here comes a revelation that many ignore. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It matters how much you choose to keep. In fact, studies by the United States Federal Reserve show that more than 60% of first-generation millionaires didn't inherit fortunes or win the lottery. They built their wealth with a simple equation: disciplined savings, consistent investment, time. You don't need to start with thousands of dollars. You need to start with the decision to no longer postpone your financial freedom. Invisible savings aren't just about money. It's a message you send to your mind. I'm in control, not my impulses. And that control is the first building block of your financial independence. Imagine two people with the same salary. One spends everything on fleeting luxuries. The other pays themselves first, saves, and invests. 10 years later, the first has memories and debts. The second has capital that earns interest, investments that produce cash flow and the freedom to choose. The difference wasn't made by income, it was by discipline. Strategy 4. Multiply instead of accumulating. One of the most common mistakes is believing that being rich means accumulating money in an account. Nothing could be further from the truth. Money, when it sits still, begins to die quietly. Inflation acts like a thief in the night. Each year, it steals between 2% and 10% of your purchasing power, depending on the country and the economic context. If you keep $10,000 in cash for 10 years and inflation averages 5% per year, in the end, that $10,000 will have the same purchasing power as $6,000 today. You didn't lose the amount, but you did lose the value. It's like watching your wealth slowly dissolve in your own hands. The key isn't to accumulate. The key is to multiply. Robert Kiyosaki sums it up with a powerful phrase. The rich buy assets that make money. The poor buy liabilities that cost them money. A dollar bill kept in a drawer is just paper. But that same dollar bill invested in education transforms into knowledge that no one can take away from you. A business turns into clients, cash flow, and opportunities. Assets like real estate or stocks become a machine that works for you even when you sleep. Money, like energy, must be in motion. If you stop it, it stagnates. If you invest it, it flows and expands. Think of the farmer. If he saves all his seeds for fear of losing them, in the end, he will have nothing but a sack of dry grain. But if he dares to sow them, those seeds will multiply into entire fields of crops. Money works the same way. Saved, it depreciates. Invested, it grows and multiplies. To help you see this in numbers, let me give you an example. If you invest $10,000 at 8% per year, in 10 years, you won't have $10,000. You'll have more than $21,000. In 20 years, more than $46,000. And in 30 years, more than $100,000. All thanks to the magic of compound interest and the decision to move money instead of letting it lie dormant. Here's the mindset that makes the difference. Don't ask, how much do I have? Ask yourself, how much does what I have produce? Because true wealth isn't measured in accumulated bills, but in assets that generate cash flow, growth, and freedom. Strategy 5. The Golden Network and the Power of Connections. Wealth is never created in solitude. The image of the isolated entrepreneur building fortunes solely through individual effort is a myth. Behind every success story, there is always a network of relationships that made it possible. Billionaire Richard Branson said it best. Your network of contacts is your net worth. One contact can save you years of failed attempts. One conversation with the right person can open the door to a contract, an investment, or a business that completely changes your financial destiny. The difference between growing your wealth slowly or accelerating doesn't always lie in your knowledge, but in the people you know and trust. Studies by Stanford University economist Mark Granovetter show that more than 70% of job and business opportunities come through informal connections, not public announcements. In other words, wealth flows more through invisible networks of trust than through traditional systems. Imagine two scenarios. A talented but isolated person with great ideas but no one to listen to them. Another person with a circle of entrepreneurs, mentors, and investors. Who do you think has the best chance of turning an idea into a real company? The answer is obvious. Isolated talent rarely thrives. Connected talent multiplies. Your network isn't about how many people you know, but about who trusts you. Because trust is the invisible currency that moves contracts, partnerships, and recommendations. Look at what happens in the startup world. 90% of seed capital investments don't come from public presentations, but from trusted referrals within private circles of entrepreneurs and investment funds. This shows that it's not enough to have a good idea. You need to be connected to the right network.
Wealth isn't just measured in dollars. It's also measured in access, influence, and credibility. So surround yourself with those who think big, because the conversations you have determine the decisions you make. If you constantly talk about debt, limitations, and scarcity, your mind will train itself to do so. If you talk about investments, projects, and possibilities, your mind will open up to new paths to prosperity. Declare it right now in the comments and engrave it in your heart. Nothing stops me. Everything drives me. Because every connection, every conversation, and every alliance you build is a boost toward your future wealth.
Strategy 6. The art of selling without selling. Every human being sells, even without realizing it. An employee sells their skills and their time to a company. An entrepreneur sells their vision to investors. A leader sells inspiration and confidence to their team. Even in our personal lives, we sell ideas, perspectives, and emotions in every conversation. The mistake is thinking that selling is about manipulation. True selling isn't about imposing, it's about connecting. It's not about pressuring, it's about convincing with truth. In the financial world, this is even more evident. Statistics show that more than 85% of purchasing decisions are based on emotional factors, and only 15% on purely rational reasons. This means that selling isn't about talking about features, but about real transformations and benefits. The secret is simple but powerful. Listen more than you talk. Because when you listen, you understand the other person's real need. Understand more than you impose. Because when you understand, you can offer solutions, not empty products. Think of the best salesperson you know. They're not the ones who insist until you're tired, but the ones who make you trust them, who make you perceive authenticity in their words, who make you feel they genuinely want to help you solve a problem. That's the art of selling without selling. And here's the financial truth behind this skill. Those who know how to sell will never go hungry. Because while some wait for an opportunity to arrive, those who master the art of selling are capable of creating, multiplying, and sustaining it in any economic climate. Look at the business world. Steve Jobs didn't just create products, he sold a vision of innovation and design that transformed industries. Elon Musk doesn't just sell electric cars, he sells the idea of a sustainable future. Warren Buffett doesn't just invest, he sells trust and credibility to millions of shareholders. The difference? They understood that selling isn't a transaction. It's communication, trust, and purpose. And on a personal level, this principle translates into freedom. Those who know how to sell their ideas, their talents, or their vision will always find a way to generate value, income, and prosperity. Strategy 7. Debt control. Debt is like fire. It can warm your home, or it can burn everything down. Most people use it in the worst possible way. Credit cards with interest rates of 30% or more. Consumer loans that finance momentary desires and become long-term chains. The result? A life working not to advance, but to pay interest. In many Latin American countries, millions of families spend up to 40% of their income just paying off consumer debt. That money, instead of building wealth, evaporates in the hands of banks. But not all debt is the enemy. There is also good debt, debt that finances an asset that generates more than it costs. For example, a loan to purchase a property that produces income higher than the bank's monthly payment. A business loan that allows you to open a branch and multiply your income. Educational financing that enhances your skills and increases your market value. An entrepreneur who uses smart debt can accelerate growth in 10 years that would take others a lifetime. The secret is that debt doesn't consume you, but rather that you put it to work for you. Because those who enslave themselves in consumer debt bury their financial freedom before achieving it. But those who master debt
Those who know how to differentiate between what impoverishes them and what drives them turn banks into their allies, not their executioners. Never take out a loan that doesn't have a clear repayment plan. Never use debt to satisfy a momentary whim. Only use debt when it serves as a bridge to an asset that generates wealth. Remember, debt can be a silent poison or a powerful engine. The choice depends on your discipline, your vision, and your financial education.
Strategy 8. Create multiple sources of income. A single income is like walking a tightrope. Any unexpected wind can knock you off your feet. Relying solely on a salary means your stability rests in the hands of another person, a company, or even a market that can change at any moment. According to an IRS study in the United States, 65% of millionaires have at least 3 active sources of income, and those over $10 million typically have 7 or more diversified sources of income. The most common sources include stock market investments and index funds, real estate rentals which generate monthly cash flow, own businesses, even small side projects, dividends from solid companies, royalties from books, music, or digital content, intellectual property such as patents or licenses, consulting or advisory services that turn experience into income. Think of your life as a river. If it only has one tributary, during the dry season, the river dries up. But if you build multiple streams, there will always be water flowing. That's the difference between someone who lives in fear of losing everything and someone who lives with confidence because they know abundance flows from multiple directions. You don't have to start with 7 at once. Start with a second source, even if it's small. A freelance project, a digital product, an automatic investment in an index fund. Over time, those drops become rivers, and rivers become oceans. The key is to understand that financial security doesn't come from what you earn, but from diversifying the flows that sustain your life. Millionaires don't think in terms of one job. They think in terms of income ecosystems that make them unbreakable. Strategy 9. The long-term vision. Most people live trapped in immediacy. They want instant gratification, today's coffee, this month's trip, that new phone in their hands as soon as possible. But true wealth isn't built in the short term. It's built with patience, strategy, and vision. Look at the difference. Poor people think about the weekend. Their goal is to survive the routine to enjoy a few hours of escape. The middle class thinks about next month, how to pay bills, how to balance the credit card balance. The rich think decades ahead. They design a future that doesn't depend on chance, but on decisions made today. The secret is to endure the discomfort of the present in exchange for the freedom of the future. A clear example is saving for retirement. If a 25-year-old person invests just $300 a month in an index fund with an average annual return of 8%, by age 65, they would have over $1 million. On the other hand, if they wait until age 35 to start, they would end up with less than half that amount. The difference isn't the amount invested, but rather time and long-term vision. Think of bamboo. For years, it seems like nothing is growing, but it's silently taking deep roots. And when its time comes, in a matter of weeks, it can grow up to 30 meters tall. That's how wealth works too. It seems slow, invisible, until suddenly, everything changes. People without vision live by putting out fires. Strategy 10. Wealth as a legacy. When we talk about wealth, most people think of numbers, properties, bank accounts. But the real question is,